And what about that entourage sitting there? Did you notice their faces? They looked even more sour and displeased than in February 2022, when he forced them to sign up for this war in blood. Today, it seems to me there was confusion, a sense of fear, and a feeling of utter hopelessness. Do you think they'll ever actually muster up the courage to do something serious, to get rid of the main cause of all their troubles? They've got plenty of problems. Stolen enough for their old age, stolen for their kids, hidden it all away in stashes and for nothing, you know?
So I think right now they're slowly ripening for this, getting ready for it. In other words, that's basically what's happening. When Trump was elected, everyone said, well, that's it. Biden is leaving, so we'll be able to make a deal with this president. So all those individuals who had previously stolen money and who now wanted to return to a normal situation thought to themselves, that's it. Trump will give us some leeway. He will lift the sanctions. And now finally, everything will be fine. And in fact, Trump made every proposal that moved in that direction. Absolutely all of them. Literally things that Putin could not have even dreamed of. But Putin acted like the old woman from The Tale of the Fisherman and the Fish. He was given everything. They built everything for him, did everything for him. He was made the sovereign empress. And then he says, now I also want Trump to be at my beck and call. And I think this really broke a significant number of elites around Putin who were hoping that Trump would come and we would finally put an end to all this, because we've been at war for 3.5 years already, almost 4. Frankly, we don't need Ukraine at all. This is Putin's war alone, and so on and so forth. And in fact, all of these people who were hoping that Trump would offer something interesting, Trump did indeed make an offer. And suddenly this old geezer just dug in his heels and said, no, that's not enough for me. So right now, Putin is behaving exactly like Hitler did in the year 1945. I mean, when it was already over, we, the Soviet generations who watched those 17 moments of spring, we saw that even Himmler had realized everything was lost, and Goering had realized everything was lost. Everyone understood it was all lost, and only one old geezer sat in the bunker saying, in 2 months we'll win. That's exactly how I feel right now, that the entire Russian elite is finally realizing this, that there are just a few completely old fools who don't need anything at all in their lives. They don't need any kind of life. They don't need any money or material wealth. Their minds have just gone off the rails, and they're thinking in some kind of, I don't know, broad, abstract, and perhaps even incomprehensible geopolitical categories. And in such a situation, Putin could simply, it seems to me that a conspiracy is brewing within Putin's inner circle. And even the efforts, like when Kirill Dmitriev appeared, I personally saw that as a very positive sign, because it meant that the younger generation around the old fart, all these daughters, and also the oligarchs connected to these daughters, they're pushing Putin, saying, yeah, enough with the war already, let's start trading. And they were shutting Lavrov up, completely sidelining Ushakov, and actively pushing away all these old farts, all of whom are well over 75 years old, who are just sitting around and dreaming about the return of the Soviet Union or something similar to that. And the fact that they're not succeeding shows that there's a struggle going on. So there's this clan of old farts, the hawks, who keep persistently coming back again and again. All these Patrushevs, Bortnikovs, Lavrovs, and other old farts like Brezhnev. And then there's this younger generation, well, not that young, they're all already over 50, in their early 50s, saying, enough, we're sick and tired of you old farts, let us come to power, let us finally have our turn, and let us enjoy life for ourselves. We don't need any of your pointless wars. We don't need any kind of so-called economy. We don't care about Ukraine or those so-called Banderites or whatever so-called denazification and so on. It's all complete and utter nonsense. The whole world is ready to trade with us. As long as we don't, you know, it's the same story as when back in the day, people around Hitler used to say that if he hadn't been obsessed with exterminating Jews in concentration camps, he would still be in power now, because that's what ultimately destroyed him. These are the two stories. The first is the concentration camps and the Jews. And the second is the war against the Soviet Union. I mean, why was it necessary to start a war against the Soviet Union when you had already defeated all of entangled Europe? It was just as foolish as Putin's war against Ukraine. In other words, it was an absolutely suicidal move. But then the whole thing kind of dragged on, moving along sluggishly. But now they're getting tired of it. 3.5 years have passed, and very soon it will be 4 years, and the old man, who is quite clearly already losing his mind because Trump just handed absolutely everything to him on a silver platter and said he was ready. He was prepared to put pressure on anyone, on any party, as long as you agree to sit down at the negotiating table, keep what you have conquered, lift all the sanctions, and we will trade with you, and so on and so forth. But the old man said, no, I don't want that. I want to own Moscow, and I want Trump to be at my beck and call. That's it. This is a classic case. And honestly, I really hope for a coup d'etat, and I really hope for a Swan Lake scenario. Someday they'll tell us that suddenly Putin's heart just stopped, or simply that they made a decision. Well, I don't think they'll say they made a decision that, so to speak, Putin is tired, he needs to rest, and so on. They'll just say that he died, especially since Valery Dmitrievich Solovey has long told us that Putin is lying in a refrigerator.
Moreover, I think that through diplomatic channels, yes, often behind the scenes, generous offers have indeed long been made to those who could make it happen. What do you think? By both the United States and Europe as recognized.
When Trump canceled the planned decision to meet with Putin in Budapest, and Trump then went on a tour of several countries in Asia, everyone was asking, why did Kiryusha Dmitriev fly to Washington? There was no one there. But why did he go there? It seems to me that, as I understand it, first and foremost, he went there to try to sort out the situation with Lukoil's foreign assets, in particular Gunvor and so on. And secondly, to show that, guys, we have people on the inside who are ready to go along with all your proposals. We just don't know how to get rid of that old fart without him shooting us while we're trying to oust him. That's all there is to it. It seems to me that this is why Kiryusha Dmitrievich went there. It's absolutely possible.
Well, kind of like for an inspection.
Not just for an inspection.
And this version that surfaced this week, I can't remember the publication, about how Lavrov was the reason for the Budapest deal falling through. At least that's what the Kremlin accused him of. Supposedly, he was extremely rude to Rubio, and he was almost accused of sabotage. And they say his position is now on shaky ground. Maybe he's also involved in some kind of scheme there.
Alexei, everything you've just said is not at all how things actually are, because all of this was basically leaked by the Kremlin. Everything you've described isn't a real leak at all. That is to say,
They pinned all the blame on him. It's not Putin who caused the trouble. It's the scoundrel Lavrov who got out of line and didn't carry out the master's will properly, right?
Moreover, Putin didn't even punish him for this. So if he had been dismissed and made the scapegoat, that would be one thing. But when they made him the scapegoat, it was because Putin had no intention of going to Budapest at all. He was looking for an excuse not to go there. And Lavrov gave him that excuse. He said, well, that's it. So you understand yourself that Lavrov has no independent policy whatsoever. He doesn't pursue or conduct any independent line at all. He said exactly what Putin told him to say, and then they leaked to you that supposedly people inside the Kremlin were upset with Lavrov because he ruined everything. But at the same time, he was secretly awarded yet another order of St. Andrew I, called for a job well done, because that's exactly what Putin wanted, to have that meeting fall through. That's all there is to it. So there's no need to make things up here. Because of all these Washington rumors that are currently going around, there is a lot of speculation and discussion happening.
And there are a lot of leaks. Sometimes they might even be paid for. This war has shown that, well, let Lavrov have his order, secret or not. It's already time to start preparing for the funeral, filling the little pillows that will be carried. That is, unless he ends up in prison. And it seems you're right, Sergey. Most likely the only hope is for an internal coup. And for Putin's fear of dying. Because this week, the well-known British publication, The Daily Star, officially confirmed what you and many others have been saying for several years now, that Vladimir Putin is truly obsessed, and he's deeply obsessed with the idea of his own personal longevity and continued rule. And the publication writes, by the way, specifically citing the investigative journalist Ilya Dovlyachin, that Putin has a strong desire to stay in power until the year 2050. He is 73 now, so he would be 97 years old then. 97 years old. That's how old he would be. And right now he is convinced that he can keep ruling. And maybe, I really like this word, he will pass power to his son Ivan, who is now 10, and in 2050 he will be accordingly 35 years old. Do we really believe it or not? I don't even know if it's really worth asking, because it seems to me that with this patient anything is possible. But what is the basis for his confidence that people will keep putting up with him, so to speak, and that he'll last that long? What do you think?
because he's gone off into the astral plane. In other words, he lives in his own dimension. And he doesn't have a single critical person around him, not one person with a critical perspective. Trump at least has Melania, who tells him, you're an idiot, you don't understand anything. Putin doesn't have any Melania. So all this talk about Kabayeva, about some sons, it's all just nonsense. These children, if they even exist, as we've already discussed long ago, are simply spare parts for Putin so that he can live to 150 years old, meaning their organs will be harvested and transplanted into Putin. He has no intention of putting any of these Ivans in his place anywhere. He plans to sit in that position himself until he's 150. And that's why the second part is complete nonsense. Absolute nonsense. But the first part, in my opinion, really does have some basis in reality.
It's just that some deceptive swindlers are surrounding these actually insufficiently educated rulers, who honestly seem like they never got past high school. Because the whole idea of transplant medicine essentially boils down to two things: on immunosuppressants, which you have to take every day. These are very strong drugs to prevent your body from rejecting foreign organs, even from close relatives. And what does it all come down to, Sergey? So we've come to the brain, which also ages. Transplanting it is currently impossible. And if it does become possible, who will you be then? Putin with the brain of Ivanova, Petrova, or Sidorova. I mean, the absurdity of this theory is just off the charts. Well, Sergey, as reasonable people, yes, go ahead.
So who is going to tell this to Putin? Who is the person who...
Why, if you can make billions off of this? Are you serious? If we were under such an idiot, we probably wouldn't even be talking to each other, you know? We'd be rubbing our hands together and counting our money.